Welcome back, Relentless Undefeated Rescue Union. We're continuing with the Gear Showcase series. Today we're back in the Ranger, but we'll head out and showcase some gear. Okay, so we're back in the dungeon, and we are going over Relentless Pursuit. So this is the last of the assault launchers. And I say this one for the last because this is a cataclysm weapon, which means basically when the Echoes of Reality patch dropped, they added this weapon in, or sorry, this gear piece in. Basically, it does the same thing that Avengers Boon does, except the Masterwork perk is different. So, upgraded Pulse Blast, combo effect is Impact. It's more useful against, or it does more damage against shields. And then after hitting an enemy, the blast bounces to nearby enemies up to three times. So this one, I've got a little bit extra gear damage on it, so it's going to be a little bit stronger than it normally would. Basically, the way this is going to work is I'm going to freeze a group of enemies, and then I will charge it up, hit it, and then it's just going to keep bouncing around until it hits about 3 enemies. And it goes around for a while with its duration if it doesn't hit anybody, so it hangs out for a second. So we'll go in and showcase it. So the trajectory is a little weird. It doesn't like seek out targets, but it's doing pretty good in GM1. Before, and it's still going, so it's pretty neat. So there you go. It took out all 3 right there. See if we take out these 3 back here. Yep. So not bad. Pretty good. Good damage too. And this is my test build. Just to showcase it. Test Ranger. Nothing special on here, and then we are in G1. So you kind of need to play with this quite a bit to kind of understand like how the trajectory works and how it bounces off things. That's not a steep learning curve though. That's pretty straightforward. After you used it a couple times, you'll kind of figure it out. Alright, so let's see how it does against shields. GM1 shields, no surprise, takes out shields and health. There's Storm over here. We'll check it against them real quick. So it actually, I don't know if you could tell from what it did, it actually hit them, bounced off of something, and it hit them again. And that's why it killed them like pretty much with 1 shot. Oh, it sort of worked how I wanted. As you can tell, like, alright, let's take out their shield. And then as you can see, when it bounced off that enemy, it hit the armored one, and it took about half their health. So it definitely does more damage against shielded enemies. Because it hit this guy, and he's still got some health left. Okay, so now it's just me and the Ranger. So I took their shield all the way down, which is interesting. Oh, they just died from... Okay. So it's doing the same kind of damage that Avengers Boon does. Nothing too special, and against armored enemies, it's not super useful. We'll jump into GM3 and check it out there. So we are in GM3, and back with Relentless Pursuit. So we'll test it against the shield real quick. So about a third, but it hit it twice, so did pretty good damage. About 2/3 of the normal grunt's health. shield's down. Yeah, it's not doing a lot against their shield. Kind of same thing you've seen with Avengers Boon. The thing is that it's still bopping around, so it has a chance to hit them twice, which it is almost like you have 2 to 3 of these. So, as you see, it does this weird thing where, like, even though it's not bouncing off anything, it'll still hit the same target. It's just one of those things you need to experiment with, because it's not necessarily unpredictable. It's sort of predictable. It's just it depends on, like, the geometry of the area you're in, on its pattern. I'd say the biggest learning curve with this is just learning the trajectory, and it's just overall how it, like, moves around. Ooh. So typically here I would do something like priming them with whatever, and this is where it really shines a lot. Is you can basically just prime them and detonate them, which Avengers Boon does as well. But Avengers Boon's Masterwork perk had the ability to basically detonate, sorry, when it hit an enemy, it would give you 220% melee damage. Where with this one, it's more specifically meant for crowd control. This is where it really shines, is if you use Arctic Tomb. Detonate a large enough group, you can just freeze the entire group. And you just keep freezing and freezing and freezing enemy types. So it did pretty good against their shield, which is denoted in the description by the shield break. So it's always going to do better against shields, because that's kind of how it's designed, whereas it's going to be less effective against armor. Alright, so we got some armor enemies. Let's test it against them. Yeah, so because it does more against shields and it does less against armor, it's not going to do a whole lot here. But they should prime really well. Get all my health back real quick. Okay, so against the Ranger shield, does about a third. That's what Avengers Boon was doing. Nothing special here. Okay, so now we got them down to their base health, and yeah, it's doing nothing against armor. We're seeing like 15-ish. Because it hit him twice, you'll see it a couple times. But yeah, for the most part, if it doesn't hit a weak point, you're going to see roughly about 15. So I'm having trouble getting that. Okay, so primed him. And about 90,000. That's not too bad. Oh. So that one's a little bit more. And there, so. Yeah, not bad. I'll go ahead and just finish them off. Okay. So let's do some box checking. Is it efficient? It's really efficient. Well, so this is kind of like something I want to throw out there. This is one of those things that you need to play with quite a bit and get an understanding of how its pattern works, because if you understand it and how it moves and the trajectory it takes, you can kind of like plan around it and then go for certain targets and knowing that it'll hit other ones because of how you've seen its characteristics. So I mean, regardless, it's still going to be pretty efficient. It can get wild every once in a while and do unusual things, but that's very rare. I'm not saying it doesn't happen; it will. It usually just takes a specific trajectory path that it bounces off walls or off enemies and goes to the next one. So I definitely recommend just getting to know the general trajectory or characteristics of it, and it'll be more effective to you. So it's going to be efficient. Is it viable? Well, it is a detonator, so I've always gone along the same point. If it's a detonator or a primer, it plays into the combo system in Anthem, so that makes it very viable. And then, is it fun? Well, I have fun with it. I use it a lot on a build where I'll just throw out Arctic Tomb. It'll freeze, like, even if it's just one enemy in that group, as long as I'm able to defeat that enemy, it'll prime all the enemies with the frost in that area. And you can just keep on going and going and going and going and going. And because it bounces around like it does, it has a higher possibility of hitting an enemy type than Avenger's Boon. And then potentially what can happen is when you get in a group, and you can see that from the gameplay, when it gets in a group and you detonate one of the ones in the group, if it kills them in that group, it'll prime all the ones in that group, and because it's still bouncing around in there, it could potentially hit them and then freeze another one. So it's a neat little domino effect if you can get it off and get it to work really well. You're probably going to need a lot more damage into it than I have to get that to happen a lot. But grunt groups are usually not very tanky, so usually, like me, having 100 extra damage worked out pretty well. Some of the negatives, because this is the Cataclysm one, and they really don't have a lot. Almost all the Cataclysm weapons are better than the ones they're kind of designed off of. So, like, in fact, this one was built off Avenger's Boon. Or it's just Avenger's Boon with a different Masterwork perk. The takeaway is it's got to charge up, so you got to figure out the timing on the charge, and, you know, kind of, if you let off too early. Same takeaway as Avenger's Boon. And then it does have a punishing recharge. Let's see here. So Avenger, it's at 5 recharge. Oh, I guess it's not that punishing. It's as long as you got a decent amount of charges on it, it's not too bad. It's not really low. It's not really high. It's just kind of in the middle. So, but as you can see, Avengers Boon and Relentless Pursuit, they're pretty much almost exactly the same, except for stats wise, except for the Masterwork perk, which I think here the biggest thing that showcases this one being a lot better than Avengers Boon is basically its its efficiency and viability. Avengers Boon was viable, but this is more viable just because basically you've got 3 of these. If you can strategize and kind of get it off really well, potentially you can hit 3 enemies with it. So that's like 3, where with Avengers Boon it was just the 1. So I'm going to end it here because I think there's not much more to say about this. This is better than Avengers Boon. This is one of the best assault system components or pieces of gear that the Ranger has. So if it comes through the store, so this is why I'm saving the Cataclysm ones to the end, because you don't even really have to buy this in the store. It does come through, but you can actually buy this in the seasonal store. So when that comes around for the Ranger, you can just dump all your crystal that you earn from just doing strongholds or seasonal events into there and just pretty much get them for free. So if you're definitely wanting to get one of these, just save up your crystals till Ranger cycles back through. They cycle through on I think it's a 5-week one because it goes Ranger, Colossus, Storm, Interceptor, and then components, universal components. So if you're not looking to get a lot of components, this is something you can save up for. But I am. Oh yeah, so this is going to be a thumbs up for me, and then hope to see you guys out in Bastion.